Game 7, Eastern Finals. Everyone all dressed up. It was a coronation for the Celtics. They just had to show up, and they were going to be the first team in NBA history to close the deal. A historical comeback over the Miami Heat. And they were big favorites. They were at home. Everyone was all dolled up, ready to go. Memorial Day night madness in Boston. And then they had to play the game. Which is the problem. And if you didn't see it, you probably know by now what happened. Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, had 28 points, but he was not even the story here. It was Caleb Martin. Who? Caleb Martin. Did not have him on my bingo card, but Caleb Martin added 26 points, and the Heat burning, scolding hot the Celtics there, 103-84 the final in a game that was dominated from the late stages of the second quarter to the end of the game. The fellas from South Beach get the win. So Miami, they did not trail after the early part of the first quarter. They led by as many as 23. And so a team that was the last one in that Fugazi play-in tournament, and they are now representing the Eastern Conference of the NBA, a chance to win a championship. Game 7 was a garden party, but not for the home team. The better story, though, is in that losing locker room, so that is where we were going to go. And let us discuss, how did this happen? The question, who gets the bulk of the blame for the Celtics blowing a golden opportunity in Game 7 after winning 3 games in a row, and then it came down to Game 7, and then a no-show performance. So I've got Jersey, Uncle, and Tebow, and we will combine all of these things together. We'll put them in the blender, and we are going to make a nice dessert, which the Celtics can enjoy because they will not be playing basketball anytime soon. So, you have to look at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's the obvious one. These guys did not step up. They stepped down. They're the ones that own the Stardust in Boston, the powerhouse players. We've been told that. They've been given a bunch of accolades over recent years, and this was the big stage. You were watching. I was watching. And what did we see? What do these all-NBA guys do? What do? Tatum and Brown. Well, it was a Jersey-like performance, as in Jersey Mike's. They grabbed a hoagie. They chowed down on a panic sandwich. And as we anticipated in a previous episode of the show, when you look at a Game 7, we love Game 7s because oftentimes it does not come down to who plays better. It comes down to who plays worse. And you saw early on Tatum and Brown, they had tight Tookus syndrome. They chowed down on the panic sandwich. It was insubordination, had the tail between their legs. Now, Jason Tatum, some will give him a pass, the usual losers in the media. It wasn't his fault. He was dinged up. Yeah. Okay. He hurt his ankle. He stayed in the game. First offensive time down the court for the Celtics. He came down awkwardly on the first offensive possession for Boston. But the fact that he stayed in the game, you don't get a pass on that. I don't give you. Maybe other people will. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people, plenty of losers with microphones, dopes that have TV shows, and they're hipsters online. But he was not a difference maker. He wasn't. And this was a legendary moment for Jason Tatum. And all these same bozos, you don't want to get a Game 7 with Jason Tatum at home. Stuff of legends. No. Then you got Jaylen Brown, who was also shooting blanks. And Jaylen Brown had 19 points. He managed to have 8 turnovers. Tatum, by the way, had 14 points.
You can really caca it up.
Yeah, well, they did. Combined, they shot 2 of 13 from behind the arc. Jaylen Brown guilty of non-compliance with doing your job. Here is Jaylen Brown following the loss, pointing out that there's a lot of people that the Celtics really, they just kind of blew it.
Just a terrible game when my team needed me most. JT hurt his ankle First play of the game, you know, you could see it like swelling up on him, and he couldn't move out there. It was tough for him, and you know, my team turned to me to make plays and et cetera, and I came up short. I failed. I expected to win today and move on. That's what my focus was on. That's what my focus has been on. We failed. I failed, and it's hard to think about anything else right now.
Yes, you are a failure. Congratulations. Would you like some cheese with your wine? Cheese and crackers there. We have some, actually, in the cafeteria here at Fox Sports Radio. So the Celtics turned out to be all bark and no bite in the end. That's the story of this Celtic team. Maybe they'll be better next year. Maybe they'll be worse. Who knows? Now, the second page here. What's the big takeaway, though? What's the big takeaway from the Celtics losing the way they did? It wasn't a close game. It wasn't Jimmy Butler taking over in the final 2 minutes. No, the game was decided by the time the early part of the fourth quarter was going on. You could argue the game was decided midway through the third quarter, that there was no reasonable expectation that Boston would come back. Now, the thing that I enjoy the most about this Game 7, the Mythbusters angle to it, all of the bullshoy that was being tossed out by the dum-dums in the media, trying to explain what was going on when the Celtics had won a few games in a row, such as one of my favorites, the Celtics bonded because they went to Top Golf. That's right. They had some drinks, and they were hitting golf balls, and that turned their entire playoff series around. That was a popular narrative that was being peddled by members of the Celtics, and, of course, media dopes love that kind of stuff. They were running wild with it. Jaylen Brown, we just played a Jaylen Brown soundbite. How about how dumb does he look? He had the warning. Remember his famous warning? Don't let us win one. Don't let us win one. Okay? How'd that go? Well, you won 3. And right out the window. Now, the person I actually genuinely feel bad for is Derek White. Because the Derek White game goes out the window. It is no longer an iconic moment in Boston sports because that tip in with a nanosecond on the clock in Miami, that fades away. The Celtics didn't even go to the NBA Finals. Forget winning the championship. And then the ultimate takeaway from the Celtics losing home court game number 7 to Miami is uncle, as in cry uncle. All the nonsense by the morons. Momentum, Uncle Mo. Woo! Yeah, okay. Yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it, you and your momentum, okay? The C's were all but guaranteed. They had won 3 in a row. They had all the momentum, home court advantage. Robert Kraft was there. All the Boston celebrities were out. It was Game 7. Jason Tatum. Oh, man. Everything was set up. And then Miami went out there. They grabbed a mop, and they mopped the floor with the Celtics is what they did. What happened to the momentum? I don't understand. There is no such thing as momentum in sports. You morons. Stop with this. And Miami should have swept the Celtics by that standard, right? They had won 3 in a row. They had all the momentum. It doesn't exist. It's just something people bring up at the end to explain the outcome or try to rationalize what they witnessed. But the Celtics, I mean, where have you gone, Bill Russell and Larry Bird and even Paul Pierce? The Celtics played 11 home games in the postseason this year and had a losing record on the parquet. Went 5-6 at home. At home in the postseason. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the 2008 Celtics, who overcame the great albatross, Doc Rivers, as their coach, that Celtic team with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, all those guys together, they lost 6 home games during the entire regular season. This Celtic team this year lost 6 home games in the postseason. You got to be joking. And so it destroys the fairy tale of Derek White, as we mentioned. Also, I gotta critique Stan Van Gundy here. So this game was a Freemasonry type game with a lot of missed shots. The Celtics were horrifically terrible from the outside. So Van Gundy attempted to spin and sugarcoat what we were all watching, clearly thinking everyone watching's a dope. He was, in my mind, he was defending the Celtics when he said that the defensive intensity has picked up. And maybe he should get some new glasses because when I was watching, maybe my TV was broken. I don't know. It's possible that's the case, but that's phooey. That's excuse making. I didn't think it was amazing defense by the Miami Heat. There were a lot of three-point shots. Many of them were open, and they missed them. Right? And they didn't even try to do anything else. Now, the last word here. Now that the series is over and Miami has been crowned the winner and they will take on the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals starting later this week, were the Miami Heat the more talented team in hindsight? The answer is still no. Right? And this is a refresher course, though. There was a professor named Tim Tebow, who taught me years ago that talent is great, but all it does is give you a head start. It gives you a head start. You still have to work hard, and if you work harder than the other team, and the other team kind of goes through the motions and lollygags, that team that works harder will win. And you also learned another lesson: if you live by the three and you have nothing else, you have no other gear, you have one speed on the car. It's very hard to win a race when you have one speed, and you live by the three and you die by the three. The Celtics did not adapt, and this was a bit of Darwinism. Boston started this game 0 for 12 from downtown. It was a brick house, a dereliction of duties. They kept settling for three-point shots. God forbid you go to the basket. It's just the way the NBA's played these days, right? They can't change the way they play, and the amount of time players will go into the painted area, and then rather than go up for a shot, they will turn around to throw the ball outside. Lob it 30 feet outside for a three-point shot. But player for player, you would still rather have the Celtics roster. The Heat become the first play-in team in the brief history of that Fugazi tournament to make the NBA Finals. And Boston had a chance, but they're just another loser. Now it's 0-151, teams that had fallen behind 3-0 in a playoff series in NBA history, but Boston was not a great team in the playoffs. They played choppy all the way through. You knew when they played Atlanta, they didn't play particularly well consistently against Atlanta in that series. The Philly series, they had some games they didn't show up. But they're a total pop-a-shot type of team. And Miami's got Jimmy Butler and, with all due respect, a lot of flotsam and jetsam. But the flotsam and jetsam's working. And so it's not because of Heat culture. It's not because of that. They didn't suffocate, though, under pressure. There was no leaking gut syndrome there. Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler were better on this night in the moment than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And those two combined, Martin and Butler, outscored Tatum and Brown by 21 points head-to-head. This was the Caleb Martin game. 11 of 16 from the floor, 10 rebounds, and 26 points, a silky smooth performance. Caleb Martin, I know. Who the hell is that?